It was a typical day, or so I thought. My name's Carol. I've spent most of my life checking all the boxes, married young, raised 2 kids, threw dinner parties, and smiled when I didn't feel like it. I believed that doing everything right would bring love, stability, maybe even a little joy. But one day something shifted inside me, something I never saw coming. Please, don't make the same mistake I did. It had been a frustrating morning. My car wouldn't start, of course, and Mike, my husband, had already left for work. He rushed out, barely kissing me goodbye. I had a dentist appointment across town, so I called a cab. It was supposed to arrive in 20 minutes, but was already 35 minutes late. The late April air was warm with a soft breeze, and I stood at the edge of the parking lot outside the pharmacy, shifting from foot to foot, wishing I'd worn flats instead of these silly wedges. Then, a sleek silver Lexus pulled up beside the curb. The window rolled down, and there he was, David Whitmore, my husband's boss, as sharp as ever in his gray button-up shirt, tie loosened just a little, sunglasses perched on his head. He had that effortless confidence that always made me feel a little self-conscious, like he saw more than he let on. "Shh. Carol," he said, his voice smooth but surprised. "Everything okay?" I blinked. "Oh, hi, Mr. Whitmore. I'm just waiting for a cab. My car wouldn't start this morning." He laughed softly and shook his head. "Call me David, please. You waiting out here alone? Hop in. I'll take you. Oh, I couldn't," I said quickly. "You're probably busy. I don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble," he replied. "I'm headed that way anyway. Besides, I'd never forgive myself if I left Mike's wife stranded in the parking lot." I hesitated just long enough for him to add, "Come on. I promise not to quiz you about quarterly reports." That made me laugh. Against my better judgment, or maybe just against my usual judgment, I opened the door and got in. The car smelled faintly of cedarwood and something citrusy, clean, calm, masculine. As we pulled onto the road, he glanced at me. "You don't look like someone who's just going to the dentist," I span. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," he said. "There's just something thoughtful in your eyes, like your head's somewhere else." I didn't answer right away. My fingers traced the stitching on the seat. "I guess I've been doing a lot of thinking lately," I said softly. He nodded, not pushing, just letting the silence settle. The way he drove was unhurried, fluid, like he wasn't in a rush to be anywhere. And that alone felt like such a luxury. With Mike, it was always about getting from point A to point B. No pauses, no questions. After a few minutes, he asked, "How's Mike doing?" "He's been buried in that big presentation all week." I nodded. "Yeah, he's been really focused. We haven't talked much lately. Just passing each other in the hallway mostly." David made a small sound, somewhere between agreement and surprise. "It happens," he said. "Life has a way of shrinking things down to routines. You wake up one day and realize you don't even know what the person next to you dreams about anymore." I turned to look at him. The way he said it, there was something in his tone, not flirty, but not nothing either. It felt knowing. "Is that what happened to you?" I asked before I could stop myself. He didn't answer right away. His hand stayed steady on the wheel. "Yeah," he said finally. "That's exactly what happened to me." We fell into another silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. If anything, it felt strangely intimate, like we'd both confessed something without saying much at all. The light at the next intersection turned red, and the car slowed. We were just a few minutes from the dentist's office when he glanced over and said something that made my heart skip. "You know, Carol," he said, "I've always wondered something about you." I turned my head, my heart suddenly beating fast. "What's that?" He looked at me with a softness that made my throat tighten. "What it would be like to talk to you when you're not just Mike's wife." The light turned green, and he drove on like nothing had happened. But something inside me shifted. A crack opened, a small one, but I felt it. And I knew I'd never look at that moment the same way again. I didn't speak for the rest of the ride. I couldn't. My hands were clasped tightly in my lap, fingers digging into each other. I stared out the window, pretending to be interested in the street signs, the rows of dogwood trees, the jogger crossing the sidewalk. But all I could hear was his voice. "I've always wondered what it would be like to talk to you when you're not just Mike's wife." The words echoed in my mind, soft but weighty, like the slow creak of a door opening to a room I hadn't noticed before. or maybe didn't want to admit was there. When he pulled into the parking lot of the dental office, he didn't put the car in park right away. He turned slightly in his seat, one arm resting casually over the steering wheel. "Do you want me to wait?" he asked. "I don't have any meetings until after lunch." I looked at him, really looked, and saw something there I didn't expect. Not pressure, not flirtation, just patience, presence. Like he genuinely didn't mind. "No, it's okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You've already gone out of your way." "Thank you, David." "Really?" He nodded but didn't move. His eyes lingered on mine for just a beat longer than they should have. Then he said, "Well, if you ever need a ride or just someone to talk to who doesn't see you through Mike's eyes, you know how to reach me." He smiled, that small half-smile of his that felt more honest than most full ones, and then he was gone. The appointment blurred by. I couldn't tell you what the hygienist said or what the dentist found. My mind was elsewhere entirely. That night, I cooked dinner like always: grilled chicken, rice pilaf, roasted asparagus. Mike came home late, loosened his tie, kissed my cheek absently, and went straight to his laptop on the kitchen island. He didn't ask about my day. He didn't even notice I dressed a little nicer than usual. As we ate, I watched him. I saw the lines on his forehead, the way he chewed without looking up from his email. I remembered a time when I used to know exactly what he was thinking before he said it. Now, I couldn't have guessed if he was tired, anxious, or indifferent. After the kids left home, we promised we'd reconnect, take weekend trips, find each other again. But somehow we'd settled into parallel routines, peaceful, polite, but distant. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe curiosity, maybe loneliness. But around 10 o'clock, I picked up my phone and sent a simple text. "Thank you for the ride today. You caught me on a day when I really needed someone to see me." I stared at it for a full minute before I hit send. I wasn't expecting a reply. Not really, but one came less than 5 minutes later. "You have no idea how many times I've wanted to say that to you." I'm glad I did. I sat there on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, staring at the screen. I felt like a teenager again, flushed, nervous, slightly ashamed, but unable to stop the way my heart fluttered. I could have ended it there, said goodnight, closed the door on it, but instead I replied, "Why didn't you ever say something before?" Another pause. This one longer. "Then because I respect Mike, and I still do, but today I saw you standing there and you look so alone." I couldn't ignore it anymore. I turned off the lamp, slipped under the covers next to my sleeping husband, and stared at the ceiling. That last message sat like a weight on my chest, not heavy in a cruel way, but undeniable. He had seen me. Not as someone's wife, not as a background character, and somehow that felt more intimate than anything physical ever could.